Alrighty, tag team back again. Check it to wreck it. Let's begin. For the first time in nearly 2 weeks, the A-team has returned. Jessie, Coffield, so damn good to see you.
I know it.
I'm Emerson, remember me?
I do.
All right, wonderful. This show is The Sweat. If you have DFS questions, you've come to the right place for answers.
Mainly because we have these two know-it-all experts joining us. Please say hello to this DK Live duo of Reed Fowler and Julian Edlow. How are we doing on this fine Monday?
You're talking about us,
the
right?
A-team,
Tag team? Yeah.
No.
Sure, definitely you guys. That's what we meant. Friendly reminder to all of you at home, these two will be dishing out their Monday Night Showdown picks coming up. But for now, we start with NFL hangover.
Indeed we do. So players with a big week 12 who we could see regress in week 13, like Austin Eckler, because it now looks like Melvin Gordon's going to miss a few weeks with a sprained MCL. Eckler delivers 26 fantasy points this week after taking over for MG3. So, Reed, what makes you think he will hit 25-plus fantasy points against the Steelers on Sunday? Or maybe you don't.
Yeah, I think, Emerson, you were sipping back a couple watching that Jacksonville-Buffalo game, which was pretty tough for all you Jacksonville fans. But going back to Eckler, I don't think he gets there this week. I think if you look at the next couple of weeks, you got Kansas City, obviously a prime matchup for running backs because what his work out of the backfield, right? He saw 10 targets there, but you just don't think, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers only give up about 5 targets and 3 receptions per game, which is second worst or third worst for opposing running backs. So I do think we see a committee back here. The one thing you do like and what you saw when Gordon was out week 7 in London was that Eckler saw 95% of the snaps, right? I do think that you do have a committee here. We have Jackson obviously coming in as that sort of between the tackles guy. And we see this James White role for Eckler. And if Gordon is out, he's obviously a prime pickup off the waivers. I don't think he gets that 20-plus. I think it gets pretty close, though.
Julia, what do you think? You kind of on Reed's boat here? Maybe not this week, but maybe week after. What are the chances he can do it against Pittsburgh, bud?
Yeah, I mean, for as long as Melvin Gordon's out, Austin Eckler is obviously a great play as long as he comes at a cheap price tag. Unfortunately, we don't get to take advantage of him on the Week 13 main slate because that's the Sunday night game. There are a lot of great running back values on the 13-game main slate, but Eckler, you're going to have to play the larger slate to get him. But in season long and for, if Gordon's injury turns out to be 2-3 weeks, Eckler's definitely going to be a value that you're going to look at, really regardless of matchup. The Steelers are tough against running backs, but given how cheap Eckler is, I don't think he gets to that 25 number, but we just saw Phillip Lindsay go for 20 DK points in this very matchup. I think anything in that, 15 to 20 range is very reasonable for next week.
Julian, Amari Cooper gives his owners 41 fantasy points on Thanksgiving. Very thankful for that, I'm sure. Will he get to 20 on Thursday night against the Saints?
Yeah, this is another one that we don't get to take advantage of on the main slate, unfortunately, but we get him on Thursday night. It's a great matchup against the Saints. Cooper's been really good in every game against so far that he's played with Dallas. So I think he can keep this going and at least flirt with 20 DK points on Thursday night, given the matchup. Dallas is already, I believe, plus 7.5 in this game, so they're supposed to lose by more than a touchdown. That means they're gonna have to be throwing the ball against the Saints to try and stay in it. That didn't work. That hasn't worked out all that well for the Eagles in past weeks. Julio Jones had a pretty decent game on Thanksgiving against them. I think Cooper can have a good one, be right in that 20 area.
Hey, Reed, what do you think? Could he be right in that 20 area?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at this matchup, the Saints obviously have been a little bit better on defense, but we haven't really seen them play a team like Dallas, and not like Dallas over the season long, right? Dallas is really playing well over the last few weeks, and so the Saints do get this matchup. And we see Dak. Dak is also someone that is flourishing in this new offense, and mainly because of Amari Cooper. You give that offense, you give Zeke a little bit time to breathe, and now you have a pretty balanced offense. What you like about Cooper is that he splits his time right, left, and in the slot, about 30% for each. And when you want to go away from Marshawn Lattimore, who plays predominantly on the right side 70% of the time, doesn't spend a lot of time in the slot, that's where you can really attack this team. We saw Julio Jones go off against Lattimore, obviously on Thanksgiving, but Amari Cooper, we see what he can do yards after the catch. We see what he can do in the slot. And when you see that 30% time in the slot, that's what you really like. So I agree with Julian that he can flirt with this 20-point mark.
All right, to the tight end department we go, where Eric Ebron, he's had a frustrating last 3 weeks in the land of fantasy, really just like a roller coaster, but totally redeems himself on Sunday. So he goes for 28 DK points in week 10, big old fat 0 in week 11, then jumps back up to 21 yesterday. Which Ebron shows up against Jacksonville on the road this week? Go ahead, Reed.
Well, yeah, with the recent news now that Doyle should be or is on IR, he becomes a lockstep tight end 1. And I think in this matchup specifically, we see what Jacksonville is able to do on defense, which is nothing. Ramsey and the defense just called Josh Allen trash, and this trash quarterback just beat them. And so when you look at the tight end mark, you look at Andrew Luck and what he's doing now in the red zone. He's top 3 in completions and attempts, and then first in touchdowns. And you look at Jacksonville, they're the 7th best for opposing tight ends. They're giving up 7 touchdowns, which is tied 3rd in terms of tight end touchdowns given up to tight ends. So Ebron now getting that majority of the snaps. We see Mo Alley Cox, if he can get healthy, now filling in that Ebron role. Ebron is the guy in the red zone for Andrew Luck. This is a prime spot. I really like him in going against Jacksonville.
All right, Julian, no Jack Doyle. He's going to be done the rest of the season. This is Ebron's spot to lose moving forward. Will we see the Ebron of weeks 10 and 12? Or are we going to see the Ebron of week 11, that big old fat 0?
Yeah, everything is shaping up for Ebron's fantasy value, not only this week, but just moving forward for the rest of the season once we got that Jack Doyle news that he's going to be shut down. So Ebron, and one of those things that we didn't mention, that week 10 explosion for 28 DraftKings points, that was against the Jaguars, the matchup he has this week. He did it in very little volume. He caught all 3 of his targets, and that wound up being for 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a rushing attempt in that game. So I just think moving forward, Ebron's going to be a chalk play, and we get him this week in a really good matchup. Jacksonville ranks just 20th in DraftKings points allowed to the tight end position. Ebron got 7 targets last week, which was very encouraging given his limited role. He's kind of gone off in these fluke games, making the most of very little usage, but the 7 targets were the most that he's seen since back in week 7 against the Bills. So he's got the matchup. He's got an increased role. He should be seeing more targets. So I really like Eric Ebron, honestly.
Oh, speaking of Jacksonville, same game, but other side of the ball. After losing to the Bills, the Jaguars have fired offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. I'm so scared. Blake Bortles has been benched.
Yeah!
And now it's the Cody Kessler show in Jacksonville. Who's that? What are the chances he can pull out 15 DK fantasy points against the Colts, Julian?
I was looking to see if I had a glass next to me so that I could just drink some of Emerson's tears. This is great. I'm enjoying this, watching Emerson's demise. So I had to look up some Cody Kessler numbers today. We're not all that familiar with him. He did come on late in relief of Blake Bortles in, what was it?
It was against Cleveland, right?
Against Houston. He completed 20. He was actually solid. Although he was slinging the ball from behind, he completed 21 of 30 passes, 156 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Jacksonville's a home underdog here, so 15 is not that many. You would think that Jacksonville's going to be really aggressive with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback to show, look, we can move the ball through the air. So I do think 15 is obtainable, but I also don't think he's going to go off and win you the Millionaire Maker or anything.
Reed, Hoopsmans is this. Oh! There are the tears.
Oh, those my tears!
Little salty.
Oh.
Oh, my gosh!
Kessler, right? Look, let's look at Bortles, right? His price was at $4,700. Kessler is $200 cheaper. So that's what we really think. That's what the slate really thinks about Bortles, is that the backup quarterback is really close in price and salary. And we look, Brock Osweiler is further down than Ryan Tannehill, and Brock Osweiler was a serviceable starter. When you look at a guy like Kessler, it really doesn't matter who you put back there, because it's not necessarily the quarterback, only the quarterback. It's also the receivers. We see these receivers not necessarily flourish under this offense. We don't have any idea what the new offensive coordinator is going to do. I believe it's a quarterback's coach that got promoted, and we really don't have anything, right? We don't have anything to go off of. Yes, Kessler has been serviceable, but it's run first. And I think with Indianapolis, yes, you have to essentially keep up with that offense, but I don't think Kessler is doing it. I would just stay away. Look, if Fournette is playing and he's not suspended after that little brouhaha that we saw up there in Buffalo, then I would say play him or Carlos Hyde and just stay away from these quarterbacks.
You're an idiot if you do not start Cody Kessler this week. I'm just telling you.
Hot
Watch
take
out.
city.
We're going to make a run. Jaguars going to make a run, finish season 8-8, a respectable 8-8.
You know we have that on
Jeff
video.
Fisher-
Mark the
actually
tape.
on
Go
par,
ahead. Mark the
7-9.
tape. I
Pretty
don't
good.
care. All right, wait a minute. Late breaking news tonight. Andy Dalton has been placed on IR by the Bengals. That means Jeff Driscoll.
Who's that?
No, it's a guy Reed's been high on all season long. Will likely get his first NFL start on Sunday against Denver. What are his prospects this weekend, Reed? I know you've been studying hard this kid's game tape. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about Jeff Driscoll, right, he's the number one. No, of course not. I mean, Jeff Driscoll, look, he's a serviceable backup, much like Cody Kessler. We saw him in some spots in that game. Look, the film is very, very little and minute in this guy. We saw him in some spots be able to throw the ball. Again, you're not gonna turn to Jeff Driscoll and then throw it around the yard, especially if AJ Green gets kept out for the remainder of the season, which he should be. I really don't like this matchup. I really don't like playing Jeff Driscoll in any stretch of the imagination. Yes, we've seen him do well. Yes, he played in the SEC at the University of Florida, but that was way back when. There's no faith in this guy, right? Because we have nothing. Even if Dalton was playing, we didn't really like Tyler Boyd, right? Because of that AJ Green not being in. So if anyone on the Cincinnati Bengals offense is playable, I mean, it's Joe Mixon, but that's about it.
Go ahead, Julian. Let's waste more people's time. Let's talk about Jeff Driscoll. How high are you on this kid?
I might like Jeff Driscoll more than I like Cody Kessler.
That was my follow-up to you. Who scores more points on Sunday between those two?
That's like a legitimate toss-up, and it should be close. But I don't think you really want to play either of these guys. Jeff Driscoll.
All right.
Good point.
There's not that much you can say. Like,
great job.
Again, kind of like Kessler came in and had that game in relief. People might look at Driscoll's game log and see that he was 17 for 29, 155 yards and a touchdown, and he ran a touchdown in against the Browns. So, hey, maybe he's better than Andy Dalton, but he was doing all that down by like 28, 35 points or whatever and trying to bring the Bengals back. So it was kind of desperation time, and he was playing with nothing to lose. So the Bengals might have nothing to lose moving forward now that Jeff Driscoll's their quarterback, but the Broncos are going to have a whole week to study whatever film there is on Jeff Driscoll and probably be much more prepared for him on Sunday. So, yeah, big downgrade to everything in the Cincinnati passing game. Really.
All right, guys.
Woo.
That'll do it for now.
That was a great job, you two.
Yeah, until we bring you back for Monday Night Showdown picks. So we're going to hoop it up next after a quick preview of tonight's Titans-Texans game.
Previewing the Monday Night Football Showdown contest, I'm Brendan Glasheen, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. It's an AFC South battle, folks. Titans visit the scorching Texans, winners of 7 straight. Going to be tough to formulate a lineup with a DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson stack. Houston star wideout and QB are the most expensive players in the contest tonight. So, let's play the game we like to play here at DraftKings. If you had to pick only one, who are you taking? Hopkins is the guy because of his expected heavy workload and the PPR element. Watson's been solid, but hasn't done enough to wow us. He hasn't reached 250 yards passing once over the last 5 games. It's been well documented how lethal Tennessee's defense can be. Titans have let up just 14 receiving touchdowns. That's a league low. I'm trusting Hopkins, though, his big playability over Watson's playmaking. Houston's O-line hasn't done a great job protecting Watson. He's been sacked 33 times, 6th most among NFL quarterbacks. So I'd go D-Hop over Deshaun.
All right.
Let's talk ball.
Go ahead.
Emerson,
Go
shall
ahead.
we? Yeah, our NBA panel is here. Karin Phillips of the New York Daily News, Matt LaMarca of the Action Network, and Chris Spagnuolo from Awesemo.com.
Sweet. Pick and roll is the name of the game, boys. We start with guards. You can take Kemba Walker against Milwaukee, 9,400. Or you could save some cash. Roster Kyrie Irving, 8,700. The Celtics facing New Orleans on the road. Who's your dude, Karin?
Look, I have this formula I came up with, and if you can get the better player for, cheaper than the other guy, then you always take the better player.
Wow.
So if I do my math right, I'm taking Kyrie Irving in this.
Ooh.
And we look at the Celtics right now, they're 10-10, and we're all kind of wondering if they're going to make a trade, if they're ever going to get out this rut.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyrie's been balling out all year, ever since he cut off that little nappy afro he had going on. So with this, I love what Kemba's been doing. The guy's been a stud all year, but Kyrie's a better player and he's cheaper. Why not?
Matt, where are you going on this? Because Carr makes a good point here. Walker has been balling out, but he's going with the cheaper option. You paying up for Walker?
It's hard to disagree with Karen's logic. I got to go with Kyrie as well. If you look at what he's done over the past month, 1.42 DraftKings points per minute, and he's exceeded salary-based expectations by over 8.5 points per game over his past 10. Great matchup versus New Orleans. They're third in pace, 26th in defensive efficiency this year. If you look at the Celtics implied team total, 113 points. Doesn't exactly jump off the page, but that's more than 6.5 than they've averaged this season. And then finally, no Jaylen Brown for the Celtics tonight. If you look at the first game they played without Jaylen, Kyrie had 48.5 DK points.
Ooh.
He's seen the second highest usage bump on the team with Jaylen off the floor this season. So I think that everything lines up for this to be a smash spot for Kyrie.
All right, Chris. So no Jaylen tonight. How much does that? How much you taking into play that decision when it comes to your decision?
So, yeah, I'll make it the clean sweep. I'm going with Kyrie, too. Kyrie's averaging 1.45 fantasy points per minute with Jaylen off the floor. It's a pace-up. Kyrie's cheaper. I think you're going to get a little less ownership on Kemba, so there's some value in going that way. But Kyrie in a pace-up, a competitive game, too. That's games where you want to have Kyrie. A little more extra usage. I think some assist upside as well. I think Kyrie is the better play, but I don't want Kemba to feel disrespected here. I support you, buddy.
Ooh, all right. Let's talk who you feeling at forward, Matt. We got a slate high Giannis for 11.6K at Charlotte, or KD for 700 less at 10.9 versus Orlando. So who are you going to go with here?
Yeah, I mean, Durant is tempting with Curry out of the lineup, but even with Curry off the floor, he's still not as good as Giannis from a fantasy perspective. And I think the salaries are close enough here that I'm just going to take Giannis. He's averaged 1.67 DraftKings points per minute this season. That's the best mark in the league. He's fourth in usage. No one can match his production in terms of peripheral statistics. And he's got a pretty good matchup against Charlotte. The Bucks have the highest implied team total on the slate by a good margin. So I think Giannis is the play here, considering that the gap in salary between the two has shrunk quite a bit.
Chris, you're nodding there. Does that mean you want to pay it for Giannis too?
Yeah, I am on board with paying up for Giannis. I think Durant's been great in the last couple games, but Giannis is playing a team who gives up the most dunks and layups on the slate, which would bode well for Giannis continuing the efficiency we've seen in his last couple starts. He's only shot, 16 times in the last few games, but he's been hitting all of them. And I think this matchup presents itself well for him. KD's going to have a little bit tougher time versus the Magic. I think he's got more runway, but Giannis is he is a Greek freak. I don't know if you've ever heard that term for him, but he is a good player in this kind of matchup, and I like him a lot. So I go Giannis.
Karin, you going with the Greek freak?
I should, but I can't. I just gave y'all this great theory and formula I just came up with, and I will be breaking it one pick after if I go with Giannis. So I'm contractually bound to go Kevin Durant here. Mm-hmm. He's the better player and he's cheaper. But like they said, the gap between these guys, I've always been like this: LeBron, KD, and then Giannis, the best three players in the league. And the gap between Giannis and KD is getting closer and closer. By the game, by the season. This is a really close price point, but I can't look like a liar in front of everybody, so I just got to roll.
No, that would not be good.
I like that you stand by your convictions, man. That's tight.
Yeah, dude.
A man's got to have a code.
Yeah.
Hold my noodle one set.
I got you. Hey, I get you. All right, well, at Big Beefy Centers, you can spend $10,000 on Karl Anthony Towns, taking on Cleveland. It's coming off a 74-point performance on Saturday, or you choose from another guy who hit for over 70 fantasy points his last time out, Orlando's Nikola Vucevic, 7,800 visiting Golden State. Please pick your poison, Christopher.
That's my mom only calls me that, so I feel special now. I'm in punishment mode already.
Go to your room, Christopher.
I'll punish myself more by fading Towns here. I think so. Tristan Thompson's on a roll, just shutting down elite centers. He shut down Capella. He shut down Joel Embiid, and it's all relative. I mean, so Towns can still have a decent day, but I think Thompson's just on a roll there. Where I don't want to go against him right now with Towns, especially coming off of a huge day. I'll go with I think a little bit less ownership maybe with Vucevic. He's in a good spot. No Draymond Green opposing him on the other side. And it's a game where, he should just be able to do what he wants versus Golden State. They're not a great rebounding team this year. And Vucevic, maybe a little more motivated. They're proving themselves week after week against top flight competition. So I like him in a match versus the Warriors too. I'm in on Vucevic.
Matt, you're picking up, it appears, what Chris is putting down.
Yeah, I love Vucevic here. If you look at his production last year versus the Warriors, it was awful. I think he averaged just like 13 points and 6.5 rebounds a game. But this is not the same Warriors team right now. You know, last year when they're fully healthy this year, they can run centers off the floor, especially guys like Vucevic who have no mobility. But that's just not the case with the current lineup that Golden State is throwing out there. They're playing more traditional big men. They're playing a little bit slower than we've usually seen from them. So I think this is a really nice spot for him to keep doing what he's done all season, which is just absolutely crush. And considering that I can save, over 2K compared to Towns, I'm all in for that.
All right, Karn, you made a pretty good argument here. These last two, where are you going on this one?
Oh, this is a Nicholas sweep. Like, I agree totally with these guys because, you can get them cheaper, and I'm all caught up emotionally with this last time out, how great are the numbers he put up. But also, like they said, this Golden State front line with all the injuries they've had, I'm just not a fan of. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not a fan of Damian James or Jordan Bell or the rest of those guys, but the way they've been playing this year, in a weird way, we've been seeing that they kind of needed JaVale McGee to fill some holes and do some things, and they don't have that guy like they did last year. So I'm going with the sweep with Vucevic.
All right, thanks for the hot tips, team. Plenty more to come on The Sweat. We're going to talk some hockey with our NHL panelist. That's one person. Right after Adam Levitan breaks it down for you with Who'd I Miss On.
Hey everybody, I'm Brendan Glasheen for DK Live. This is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. This is when we recap Levitan's not-so-great picks, his misses from this week, Week 12, and he was especially high on 3 players. Odell Beckham Jr. Levy first. He logged his second lowest fantasy outing of the year, 13.5 points, 5 grabs on 9 targets, 85 yards, no touchdowns. Fast start. I guess he needed an IV at halftime, and then you factor in that Eli is Eli.
Yeah, and this guy doesn't drink water, and that should have been my first clue that we were in trouble here paying $8,800 for Odell Beckham. Look, I never spend up for a wide receiver like Odell Beckham almost ever. I thought that the slate called for it in this spot when we had so many cheap running backs that were viable, and the Eagles were so banged up in the secondary. But you can see what happens when you go on the road with Eli Manning with a wide receiver like Odell Beckham. They decline to force feed him the ball, and he ends up with just 5 for 85. And yeah, that's an okay game, but it's just not good enough when we pay $8,800. So appropriately priced, Odell Beckham is not something I'm too interested in. I think wide receivers more like Julio and Michael Thomas, who are so involved in their team's game plan, involved in their team's red zone, makes more sense.
And receivers that drink more water. Second straight game that James Conner failed to reach the end zone, 12.5 points in Pittsburgh's loss at Denver. Bigger picture question here. Have you changed your perception of Conner now after 2 straight down weeks with the season winding down now?
I think anytime the Steelers go on the road, we need to have more concerns than I did have. Obviously, last week at Jacksonville, I thought was a really tough spot for the Steelers as a whole. And then this week at Broncos was a really tough spot. Saw some really strong reverse line movement there, which suggested Broncos would be able to play well. So with Conner 100 away from Christian McCaffrey, playing Conner over McCaffrey turned out to be just a total disaster. I think Conner at home in reasonable matchups will still have a ton of upside, just like we saw early in the season. So I'm not worried about him overall, I would say.
Last one, LaShawn McCoy averaged just 2.7 yards per carry on Sunday, totaling 46 yards in the Bills' win over the Jaguars. Shady also had just 1 catch in the passing game. Josh Allen led Buffalo in rushing. Go figure. Does McCoy miss Matt Barkley?
I thought the Bills would win the game, and I was right about that. Bills came out, played really well, won the game. I thought the only way, though, the Bills would win the game is if LaShawn McCoy was really involved. That turned out not to be the case. As you mentioned, Josh Allen did a lot of damage with his legs. Defense played really well once again, obviously. So, yeah, I think that this is kind of the nail in the coffin for LaShawn McCoy. If they're at home, they play well and they win, and he's still not really involved. Then that's it, even at 4,200. And the other thing about that play was once we had guys like Josh Adams and Gus Edwards come available to us in the cheap range, and guys like Matt Breida with Alf Morris getting scratched in the mid-range, I think McCoy, even in GPPs, even in large field GPPs, became worse and worse of a play as more and more solid running back options opened up in that range.
Thanks, Levy, for your insight. That is it for Who'd I Miss On in Week 12 with Adam Levitan. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook, and on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We'll catch you next Monday to see who Levy missed on in Week 13.
All right, you may or may not know this, but I know you care. I'm from Florida. I cannot skate, but it's time to talk about people who are really good at it. DK Live editor Ben Zwyman is here to drop some hockey knowledge on us. Ben, can you skate? You're muted. I can't hear your audio, buddy. Let's try it again. Go ahead.
Can you skate?
Oh, there we go. You got me?
Yeah. Can you just answer that question one more time for the people at home, because I know they're all asking on social media.
So, I cannot ice skate, but I can rollerblade pretty well. Above average rollerblader. I was always used to falling down ice skating when I was a kid. Kind of traumatized me a bit.
Yeah, we'll work on that. All right, Ben, let's talk
Good to know.
price
Thanks,
check. John Tavares is the most expensive center on the slate. He's going to cost you $7,600 against Boston tonight. Is he going to return value? And I mean, with Austin Matthews out, he is the #1 guy in Toronto.
Right. I mean, Matthews has been out for a while, and JT's really stepped up with him out. The Bruins are a tough matchup, even on the road. They don't allow a lot of goals. Halak has been playing well. He's going to be in net for Boston. But, I mean, Tavares has just been so hot. He scored in 8 games out of 12 in November, I believe. He's also not that great at home, which sort of shies me away from paying up on a short slate. But I think this is more of a narrative spot. Last time these two teams played, the Maple Leafs laid an egg in Boston. The Bruins beat the crap out of them. I think this time around they go into Toronto. I could see a big blowout in the favor of the Maple Leafs tonight, which obviously would mean a lot of points for Tavares probably. So I can't say that you should fade him. You should never fade him, I think. I'd say he's a good option, but again, short slate, so his ownership's going to be up. I'd consider him in GPPs and cash, though.
Benjamin, out on the wing, we got Blue Jackets, Cam Atkinson. Goals in 7 straight games. 7,100. That a bargain for one of the hottest players in the league? Please explain.
It actually is. The last game, his price was up to $7,500. Now it's down $400. So this point streak, 7 games, 9 goals, 4 assists, 31 shots on goal. He's pretty much accounting for the Blue Jackets' entire offense the past couple of weeks. Again, his price is down. I really don't know why. I think the reason may be because the Red Wings have actually been playing really well at home so far in November. 5-1-1. Jimmy Howard's been playing great. He hasn't allowed more than 3 goals in a start since October. I think the thing with Atkinson, though, is he's so hot. In hockey, it's all about riding the hot streak, right? You got to ride that wave. And you're getting him at a discount. The problem is his ownership will probably be up, so I think in cash games he's safe to roll out. GPPs, maybe I lean in another direction at wing, but again, if you fade him and he hits a hat trick, you really can't, you're going to be kicking yourself. So I think you sort of have to play him at this price point.
All right, down to the dirty defense. Torrey Krug, one of the only healthy Boston defensemen.
Yeah, man, they're
He has 9.5 fantasy points over his last 2 games. Is he worth $5,600 at Toronto?
I mean, at the price, it's a good price. He has a high floor. His ownership will probably be down. The problem is the Bruins aren't really scoring a lot of goals without Patrice Bergeron in the lineup. And again, the Maple Leafs have been really, really good at home, and they're out for blood, I think, in this game. So I don't know if I'm looking at Krug so much. I think he's a good GPP play. Maybe if you want to fit him in and pick him, or tiers rather. He's in tier 8, and he's skating a lot of ice time. Obviously, the Bruins blue line is banged up. He's got to skate at least 25, 26 minutes in this game. But I don't know how much I'm looking at him, given how much the Bruins aren't scoring lately.
All right, all these positions. I guess that leaves us with some goalie talk. Braden Holtby has won 3 straight, but is on the road at the Islanders. $7,800. You like him? Does he return value at that price?
Okay, so here's the deal.
Okay.
Barry Trotz, Islanders coach. He's playing the Capitals for the first time since leaving the team. A lot of narrative tonight. I really like the Islanders to pull out a win for him in this spot. Which obviously, if the Islanders win, Braden Holtby doesn't get a win. On a short slate, 5 games, you're really looking for that win for your goalie. So unless Braden Holtby stands on his head in this game, I don't really see him returning value. He's played really well, but his price is up. $7,800 for a road goaltender is kind of shaky. I mentioned Jimmy Howard before. He's 6,900, very nice price. He's at home. The Red Wings have been playing well lately. I think there are better goalie options than Holtby, and you're really if you're buying into the narrative like I am, I don't know if he's going to get the win. So I think you go with a guy like maybe Henrik Lundqvist. He's a little more expensive. He's been lights out at home. The Rangers have a much better matchup against the Senators.
King Hank. All right. How about your slate-approved pick, Ben? Who's your lock of the night?
Yeah, I know I just talked about a Rangers player, and I'm going to talk about another one, and I'm probably going to burst into flames after saying this. But Rangers center Mika Zibanejad at 6,300. It's his cheapest price point since October. The Senators are an amazing matchup. The Senators are hemorrhaging goals to other teams. All they do is allow goals on the road, both on the power play and at even strength. Again, another narrative, revenge spot. The Senators traded Zibanejad to the Rangers, so you get a little bit there. I think his odds of at least scoring are very high, and it's a great price. I'm sort of going all in on the Rangers. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Well, you know what? We've marked the tape, so you are saying it. And we will be sure to remind you when we see you in the office
Can't wait
tomorrow.
to go skating soon.
I'll be back. I'm under the weather now, but hopefully I'll be back in tomorrow.
Well, you don't look it at all, man. You don't look it at all. You look great.
Thanks, Emerson.
Okay, well, thanks for the puck talk, man. We really appreciate it. We're going to bring you our Experts Champions League picks in a couple minutes, right after Kaufman gets Mike Francesa's take on tonight's Tennessee-Houston game.
Monday Night Football is on the way. I'm Adam Kaufman with WFAN's Mike Francesa. The Sports Pope, Mike, Chiefs-Rams was legendary last week. We could go on and on about that one. Titans-Texans doesn't have quite the same cachet, but hopefully we get a game. Are the Texans ready to pull away in the South?
Well, before you do that, let's go back to the game for a minute because of this.
Sure.
That game was everything that the NFL wants and shows you what the NFL is. Two offenses that, when they block it, are unstoppable. But you see what the defenses are built to do now. Wreak havoc. So you had 8 sacks, 7 turnovers, 3 defensive scores. That's exactly what the NFL wants. Now to this game. Houston. Give them credit because after a bad start, they finally played to that talent. They have a lot of talent. Clowney, Merciless, Watt, Hopkins. I mean, they are loaded with talent, this team, and they've started to play to that. And Tennessee is up, they're down, they're in, they're out. But I think Houston's got too much in terms of what they have on the pass rush side. Clowney's going to make a lot of money in this offseason. And obviously what they get with their wide receivers. I think Houston gets the edge in this game. Tennessee's come up with some surprising games. Their games are usually close, but I think Houston gets the win.
Well, to your point about the Titans, I mean, they've had some good performances this year. They responded, though, to their blowout of the Patriots with a stinker in Miami, so go figure. Yeah. Can Marcus Mariota be a #1 QB in the NFL, or is he just forever going to be mediocre?
He's mediocre. He's a run-of-the-mill quarterback. He's not bad. He's going to play a long time, but he's not, he's not going to be a star. There are stars in this league. He's not a star. He'll never be elite. That's the word. In New York, it's always the debate, is Eli elite? That's always been the debate for years and years. Elite's the word. He's not elite. He's going to be a guy who's going to be a starter. He's going to have a long career, but he's never going to be a top flight, Pro Bowl elite quarterback. I don't see that in him, though.
You mentioned a lot of those stars for Houston. One guy that you didn't mention, I don't think anyway, Deshaun Watson. I mean, he was one of the best stories from last season before that ACL injury as a rookie. Has he done enough this year to prove to you he's the real deal?
Again, I don't think he's elite. And listen, this is a player that I absolutely banged the drum for. I am a Heisman voter. I wanted him to win the Heisman both years. I voted for him both years. I thought he was the best player in college both years. I banged the drum. He was the best player in college for both years. He's the perfect college quarterback, but that's not the perfect pro quarterback. He's not good enough in the pocket, and he leaves himself open to getting very much beat up, and that's a problem. He's also a little erratic in his game. He's got ability. He's going to play in this league a long time. I don't think he'll be on that top level where, the guys like Luck live. I don't think he'll be there.
If the Texans do win this division, I know you're a fan of the Colts as well, but if the Texans do hang on, can they hang with the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Steelers, or are they just kind of delaying the inevitable?
No, they have a chance. They have a chance because they have the kind of guys on defense that when they get their game matchups, where if you're beat up on the offensive line, they will make you play. Remember, they've played well against the Pats in the playoffs. They scared the heck out of the Pats. Why? Because they couldn't block Merciless and Clowney, and they didn't even have Watt then. The bottom line is, if you're banged up on the offensive line and you play them in the playoffs, that's where they'll beat you. They won't beat you with your offense. They'll make their points, but they won't beat you there. They'll beat you on that defensive line because they got 3 guys who can get to the quarterback, who can win their matchup, and who can score touchdowns on defense. Those are the kind of guys who are very scary in the playoffs. Like to see from Donald, like to see from Mac. They have 3 guys who can do that, and that's what makes them scary.
Mike, thanks a lot. We'll do it again later in the week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, millions of you are watching, or at least millions of you have the ability to watch.
That's true.
It's very true. And most of you are craving someone to tell you what's up with the Champions League slate tomorrow afternoon.
And that's where DKFC contributor Adam Zadroit comes into play. Help us help our viewers, Adam. So we got a 6-game slate arriving tomorrow. Who's your top pick at forward and why?
Yeah, top pick at forward, I'm going with Robert Lewandowski. The more popular play is probably going to be Cristiano Ronaldo because, Cristiano Ronaldo. Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, great abs.
But Lewandowski, a little more of a differential in cash games because of that. But he has the best scoring odds on the slate, quite a bit more than Ronaldo. And Bayern Munich, good favorites against Benfica. Over the last 3 matches for Lewandowski, it's 15 shots, 6 chances created. And he's going to get opportunities against Benfica. There's no doubt about it. You're kind of paying up for someone that may not do anything if he doesn't score. But when he gets those goals, then that's going to be worth those extra few dollars there.
All right, AZ, take us to the midfield. Who are you rostering?
Yeah, another guy kind of under the radar, and I think a lot of the Manchester United guys are somewhat underpriced on this slate. Anthony Martial, 6,700. I like him a little bit more than Lukaku, his teammate. That's at 7,500. But United, they're not exactly playing well, but young boys aren't a good team. They're not a Premier League team, so this is going to be an easier match for them. They already beat them 3-0 on the road. And as for Martial, he has 6 goals, 20 shots, and 16 chances created in his last 8 starts. Even if he just hits those averages, he could be headed for maybe close to another 15-point outing, and that's what he had in the first meeting against Young Boys. If you want someone more expensive, you're looking at Manchester City guys. My favorite is probably Raheem Sterling in that bunch. He's at 8,200.
All right, talk defense to us. Who's lucky enough to be named your top defender tomorrow?
Yeah, the most obvious option, per usual, is the most expensive guy, Joshua Kimmich. He's going to be the popular guy playing for Bayern Munich, but I'm kind of going a little off that beaten path with Nico Schultz for Hoffenheim. He's a level just below them, but he's got the same kind of upside. There's been at least 3 goals in every Hoffenheim match this year, and they're probably going to get 2 or 3 goals. He's going to be involved in the attack. He's averaging 5 crosses and a shot per 90 minutes in league play, and he's been better than that in the Champions League. If you have the money, Kimmich might be the more sensible play, but if you want to go against their grain, Schultz makes a lot of sense, even though he's probably costs a little more than you want to spend, but he's in a great situation and should put in great numbers.
What about the top goaltender in tomorrow's 6-game slate? That's who? You're going to pay up for him, or are you going to go somewhere else?
I'm going somewhere else again. I think, well, this is only if you don't use any Real Madrid players in the rest of your lineup. I'm going with Robin Olsen. He's the Roma goalkeeper. He's a little cheaper, but he had 8 saves in their first meeting. He still had 10 fantasy points in a 3-0 loss. But the thing is, Real Madrid's coming off a pretty bad performance. They haven't played well all season, but they're coming off a 3-0 loss against a mediocre team in La Liga. And I'm not sure they're going to be back on track in this one. So even if Real Madrid do get a couple goals against Olsen, I'd still think he'll make enough saves to hold decent value in this spot.
And before you go, please give us your slate-approved pick, your must-play of the day.
Yeah, I've mentioned him a couple times. Mr. Abs, we can call him.
Yep.
Cristiano Ronaldo, he has 29 shots, 8 chances created, and 10 fouls drawn in his last 5 matches in all competitions. Everyone knows him by name. The thing is, some people may shy away from him because he hasn't had that great of a Champions League. But looking at recent results, and he's going to have the ball, he's going to get opportunities. He was actually sent off in the 29th minute in the first meeting against Valencia, and Juventus still won that game 2-0. So if you put in a couple more goals and Ronaldo involved, I think, he costs a lot, but I think he can be worth it if all goes right for Juventus.
You know what they say, more abs, more points. Good
Is that
stuff.
a thing?
Good seeing
Yeah.
you again, Adam. We appreciate your time, buddy. We're going to play some NBA Tears of Joy next, right after Pat Mayo helps you out with tonight's NFL clash between Tennessee and Houston.
Captain-wise, Titans D. Like, if the Titans are going to keep this close, their D's going to have to do stuff.
Is going to have to, yeah. I would lean maybe Dion Lewis. Does it get too expensive? You don't feel the upsides there with him? Because they're not going to be able to run the ball with Henry
I would
down
just
the
say,
gut.
if I was going to pick a Titan that wasn't the defense, I mean, Mariota's always in play because he can run, but like, might be a spot to go to Corey Davis if you want a Titans player. Because everyone's like all pissed off with him because he had a bad week last week.
Yeah, recency bias. People, he's probably been one of the most out-of-drop guys all year.
I don't
hear
think
questions
so.
about him all.
I do, but I don't think anyone really ever has the guts to cut him.
Well, I wouldn't. Lewis is interesting to me just because I feel like they're not going to be able to run the ball with Henry. I mean, he's second to team in targets and catches. He's going to be on the field almost the entire game. But what we've seen when they get down in the red zone, Henry has come in there and taken away some work. It's kind of frustrating.
If you're going to play a Texan, do you just pay up and pay for Hopkins?
I
think he goes mental on these idiots.
I think that's probably the play.
Or get contrarian with this. I mean, Watson's always in play. You could play Cutie.
You could play Cutie
if you wanted to. Although the Malcolm Butler matchup is probably Demaryius Thomas on the outside. I would not play Demaryius Thomas, but if there's a spot where you want to get a guy who no one's going to play, it's
right.
him.
If you're playing Showdown and you're playing multiple lineups, I mean, you have to kind of sprinkle in a little DT because you're right. If you're looking at recency bias, you're looking at Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, but I don't
zero targets.
I don't even think that's recency bias. I think he's bad.
He's just awful.
Yeah, like Lamar Miller might be like contrarian play.
And he's been pretty steady.
He's getting the volume, but you never know which week that he's going to get to the end zone.
Yeah, and that's another one. Like I'm tough team to run on, Tennessee. Like you wonder if he could get 20 touches for 60 yards, and that's
like this could be a kickers and defense game.
Right, that's what I feel like. I feel it's a 2017 game. It's a defensive battle.
If that's the case, then you can play both defenses. Play both defenses, play both kickers, and play both quarterbacks.
What about Texans D? What about just rolling them out?
Texans D, Titans D.
Yeah.
Who are the kickers in this game? Suck up and what's the Fairbjorn? So yeah, a kicker, defense, quarterback could be a play in this game.
Yeah, I think you should start with defense. I think that's a good call. We've talked ourselves into that. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Note, I'm awful at showdown slates.
They're tough, man.
They're tough.
Welcome back to The Sweat, everyone, where Karin, Matt, and Chris have also returned, and so is the subject of basketball. But before we dive into any tears of joy, Matt, is there any late-breaking injury or lineup news that has caught your eye and our audience should be aware of before piecing together a lineup tonight? I hear Anthony Davis could be a go.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of expecting him to play at this point, so it'd be more of a surprise if he was ruled out. The big news, Chris Paul going to miss again for Houston. Obviously, that puts James Harden, near the top of most lists tonight, I would imagine. We've kind of talked about Jaylen Brown being out for the Celtics and what that does for guys like Kyrie Irving, maybe Gordon Hayward as well. And then two other injuries that are older, but I think are worth monitoring or mentioning are Donovan Mitchell and Victor Oladipo are both out in the same game. That game, I think, could be a little bit underlooked. I think most people are now going to flock to the Rockets with Paul out. But, Utah and Indiana both missing their highest usage player. That could definitely create a little bit of value as well.
What about you, Chris? Any news, any injury notes that you are eyeing or people at home should be keeping an eye on before they build their lineups tonight?
I think what Matt mentioned about the Rockets is pretty much the main one to me. It opens up a lot more usage for James Harden, who's already kind of taking the 50-50 role that he used to share with Chris Paul a little more into his hands. I think it also makes Clint Capella, spoiler alert, guys, he might be my lock of the day. Clint Capella looks like he's in a great spot here, going to pick up a little more usage, a little more rim running without Paul in the lineup. The Harden-Capella pick and roll is unstoppable, really, especially versus the Wizards, who are just bad. So I like Capella a lot more, and Harden as well. I think those guys are as close to locks as you can get now that we know Chris Paul is out.
Karn, what news, what notes, what are you peeping before you build your lineup tonight?
Well, the only one I was really paying attention to was this Anthony Davis thing.
Okay.
And it seems like I was checking on Twitter to see what Alvin Gentry said. It seems like it's going to be a go because that was, the sexy matchup of the night, Boston and New Orleans. So since AD's rolling, I'm still sticking with my formula, though.
I like it.
Still going with KD.
You got to do it, man.
You got to do it. Now let's finally get to Tears of Joy. Let's look at the bottom two levels of tonight's tier contest. Tier 5, who are you going with in this group, Karin?
So, my head says Jason Tatum, but with Donovan Mitchell out, you got to look at Joe Ingles because that guy is a quiet bucket getter, as I like to call. And with the way that, Utah likes to swing the ball around, and even though they haven't been playing as good as we thought they would, check out Joe Ingles and look at Jason Tatum as your backup because at some point, Tatum's got to shake himself out of this rut.
All right, Chris, who are you going with? Tier 5.
I'm going with Jabari. I like Tristan Thompson, like I mentioned above. He looks great. I think Rudy Gobert also in a good spot. But Jabari Parker has just been playing out of his mind recently. And more importantly, Fred Hoiberg's playing the rotations out of their mind. About 40 minutes a game for their last few games. So Jabari just being on the court is going to give him a better shot at putting up stats. And these Spurs are not the Spurs of the past. They're just terrible in terms of defensive efficiency, rebounding. In terms of per 100 possessions, they're giving up boosts in every category to the Bulls. So I think it's a great spot for all the Bulls. And I'll take Jabari here and hope he keeps it rolling.
LaMarca, what do you think?
All right, well, I'm going to go with a third different guy. I'm going with Rudy Gobert.
Oh, yeah.
According to the Fantasy Labs models that we have, this one isn't really even that close. He's got the highest median, ceiling, and floor projections in our models. He's averaging basically 1.25 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. He doesn't see a huge bump in usage with Mitchell off the floor, but he was at 21% yesterday against the Kings, which is a good number for him. I think that he is just sort of the safe, easy call on this tier.
All right, now to the tier of the people, the tier of the working man, tier 6. So many to choose
the
from.
yeoman's tier.
That's right. It's we don't have a lot of money to spend, although money doesn't really matter in tiers anyway. But who stands out to you in tier 6, Chris?
I think it's Andrew Wiggins for me. Just coming off of a couple bad games in a row, and now he gets one of the teams in the league who just gives up a massive field goal percentage, 47% from the floor for players going against the Cavs. Maybe a little revenge narrative too, if we want to throw it back. Wiggins, maybe a spiteful Canadian, the lone spiteful Canadian on planet Earth. So I'll go with Wiggins and hope for the best.
Matt, you love revenge narrative, don't you? I can just see it on your face.
I love a good revenge narrative. I don't know if it counts if you've never actually played a game for the team, but
no, it still counts. It still counts.
I'm sticking with the same team, but I'm going with Jeff Teague. I think he just does a little bit more than Wiggins does in terms of, peripheral statistics. The matchup is excellent. Cavs are dead last in defensive efficiency. He's averaging just over a fantasy point per minute over the past month. The big issue with him is he doesn't play a ton of minutes. He's normally around 30 or so, but I just think that in this tier, which is admittedly pretty weak, I like the upside that he gives you.
All right, Karin, take your pick, please.
I just quickly want to bring light to the fact that they made a highlight package for a former #1 pick who had one rebound and 1 assist in Andrew Wiggins the other day that I'm still laughing at. But my pick is going to be Quinn Cook, just because, like I've said before, anytime this guy's in tier 6 and he's available, and especially if Steph Curry's out, I'm going to pick him because he has the ability to go off as we've seen before. And if you could get that guy and he has a big night and he's almost dirt cheap, why not take him?
All right, let's get to Slate Approved. So, Matt, who's your Slate Approved pick for tonight's NBA slate? Your must play of the evening.
Woo-hoo.
I'm going to go with Eric Gordon. I really like this Rockets team in general. I think that you definitely want exposure to them at one, if not multiple spots. I mean, the good thing about them is that their fantasy value is pretty consolidated, right? Like you can pretty much count on Harden, Gordon, and Capella to do most of the damage for this team. Gordon is still priced down because he had a rough start to the year, but he crushed in the last game without Paul, and I'm expecting something similar to that.
Chris, who are you going with? Slate approved.
I'll go with the fancy man's rocket, Clint Capella. Highest price he's ever been on DraftKings right now. Usually not a spot you want to play a guy. But these Wizards, whether they had Dwight Howard or not, and they do not, just a really great matchup for centers. Capella coming off of a down game versus the beast, Tristan Thompson, who's getting more shout-outs from me than he's ever gotten in any other aspect of NBA analysis. Clint Capella looks great. I think he's been rolling. Picks up a little usage with Paul off the floor. And again, that pick and roll with Harden, it's going to make for a lot of easy buckets. So I think Capella's as good of a center play as you'll find today.
Karin, your heart might be telling you one thing, but what is your head telling you?
Same thing.
They're both saying the same thing. I'm
Bingo.
going with Kyrie, Andrew Irving. Look, we know Boston's eventually got to figure this out somehow, even though it's been really ugly. But we know that guy's been balling. And there's one thing you can always count on with Kyrie Irving. When there's a big game and in the big stage, he always puts up monster numbers. And so in a game against Anthony Davis, everyone's going to be paying attention to, give me Uncle Drew.
All right, well done, gentlemen. Your advice and knowledge is greatly appreciated. We will hit you with those Monday Night Football Showdown picks when the sweat returns.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reported Monday morning Melvin Gordon is out for a few weeks with a grade 2 MCL sprain. Rap Sheet says Gordon should be back before the end of the regular season if all goes well. So Austin Eckler is LA's guy in the backfield. Even though Gordon scored 2 touchdowns, the second-year back still produced a season-high 26.3 DK points in Sunday's blowout win over the Cardinals. Eckler scored a rush touchdown, plus he caught 10 balls for 68 yards on 11 targets. His workload skyrockets in Gordon's absence, that's obvious. The Chargers prefer to have Gordon, their star running back, in there, but keep tabs on how the team's record fares these next 2 weeks, the wins and losses. Let me explain. If the Chargers were to fall at Pittsburgh this upcoming Sunday night and the Chiefs keep rolling, then LA's chances are slim to win the AFC West. What I'm getting at, they might be cautious bringing Gordon back since the Chargers shouldn't have too much of a problem snagging a wild card spot even without him. For now, Austin Eckler is the premier back. A tough Steelers front seven is his first test.
All right, last block of the show. The people have demanded Monday Night Showdown picks, and as always, the sweat delivers. Fun fact, it's always the last block of the show every Monday, so maybe have Siri remind you guys next week, or we will.
Right off the top, maybe. And allow me to remind you who these two are, DK Live's Reed Fowler and Julian Edlow.
Hi, guys.
So, Jules, let's start with you. Who are you considering for your captain spot tonight? Nope.
Oh, need your audio. Come on.
Try again.
Are we good now?
Yeah.
All right.
Good grief.
So normally I would like to go cheap or at least mid-range in the captain spot here. I've gone as far down as rostering kickers in high-scoring games in the captain spots, a bit more offense. But in this game with, so few projected points and so few offensive options, I would rather pay up and get DeAndre Hopkins in my captain spot. I know it costs $18,900. It's a huge chunk of salary, but there just aren't many guys. There is no other guy on this slate that can produce the numbers that Hopkins can. He averages 22 DraftKings points per game. Not the best matchup against this Tennessee defense, but he got them for 26 DK points back in week 2. Another game like that in the captain spot 1.5 times, that would give you 39 DraftKings points. There's no other way to get exposure to those type of points on the slate.
Oh, captain, my captain. Reed, who are you going to go with?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the defense in Tennessee. Like Julian just mentioned it, this game looks like it's going to be a low-scoring one. The over-under is around 40, 41 points. And when you have Tennessee, who has a #1 defense in terms of points allowed, only allowing 18, like both of these defenses are rosterable. I mean, you have two of the worst offensive lines or some of the worst offensive lines. And we see what happens with Deshaun Watson. I mean, this guy's been sacked 30-plus times. And when you have a Tennessee defense being essentially able to get to the quarterback quite often, I like that, especially when you don't really have anyone. Like, DeAndre Hopkins is a fine play. I think he's going to be the number one guy, but paying up at that captain spot at 18.9 is not a lot of return. If the Tennessee Titans can get you a couple of sacks, few sacks here, they can get turnovers, they're going to return a lot at that $4,800 captain price.
Is Watson kind of a sleeper tonight? That's just a question that we have on Facebook. Would you consider him a sleeper?
Sleeper in terms of what, right? Like that Tennessee defense is, look what happened with Will Fuller out too, right? Will Fuller, we talked about it quite a bit. Like, Kiki Kuti is filling in as that wide receiver too. But again, at that, at his price tag too, do you trust that? Do you trust that he can return value? Deshaun Watson, if he can't stay upright, he's not going to return any value.
Point taken.
Watson did manage 26.8 DraftKings points in that game against Tennessee earlier this season. So I guess he is a little bit of a sleeper. That was only a game. That was a game that Tennessee won 20-17, and yet Hopkins had 26, Watkins had 26. Somehow we had fantasy scoring in that game.
Jules, you just seem to know it all tonight, so I'll hit you with this one. Where do you find value on this slate?
Well, since Reed stole the good value in our email chain before I could get to it, I dug a little bit deeper. We got Ryan Griffin for $1,000. This guy is not going to break the slate. He's not going to have a monster game, but at $1,000, if you get 2 or 3 catches, you are looking pretty nice. And he's done that on a few occasions this season. He had 2 catches for 44 yards against the Giants. That's 6.4 times value. He had 6 catches for 65 yards against Dallas. That was 12.5 points. That would be 12 times value. If you get anything like that, that's really good production for $1,000, so you don't have to ask for much.
Reed, give the people at home someone they can roster for value tonight.
Yeah, it won't be as mean as Bukes is to Julian, but with that Griffin pick, you're hoping for those 2 or 3 catches. That's a lot to ask for. And this is what we saw from the guy that I'm picking earlier in the season is Jonnu Smith, right? We only saw him potentially get targeted a few times and really not return any value. But we saw last week on that Sunday, we saw him get a touchdown. We see him get targeted quite a bit. We now know that Mariota is playing, but in terms of that injury, that neck injury, and then also that nerve injury in his elbow, how much is that going to affect him? I do think they run the ball. Like, both defenses, like I said earlier, are playable. You can play both kickers, but if you're looking for someone to roster in that mid to low, I think Jonnu Smith does offer you a lot of that salary relief because, again, are you going to roster Derrick Henry for his 3 touches and a potential touchdown that you could possibly get? Probably not. So Jonnu Smith is a guy that if you want some salary relief, would be my guy to roster.
Okay, now we talk lines. Will Houston cover the 4-point spread as favorites? Julian, please tell us.
I like Tennessee in this one. It's not necessarily a spot where they're going to win the game, but like Reed said, we're projected in the low 40s here for points, so it's not likely that one team is going to run away with this. Houston's been hot. They've won 7 in a row. They're probably the better team, but Tennessee has a really good defense as well. It just has that feel of a division game. The last time they played, it was 20-17, a 3-point game. So it's got that divisional feel that it can stay close, so I'll take the points with Tennessee.
Reed, what do you think here?
Yeah, that graphic is going to run on Julian's face because he stole my answer. I absolutely agree with him. If you look at Houston, 5-23 and 1, I believe. This is per Oddshark on Twitter. When you talk about primetime games, the Texans don't play well under the lights. Is that Bill O'Brien in terms of what he does when the lights are on him? Maybe a little bit, right? And that quarterback spot has always been an issue for the Texans. But if you look at what the Titans have done, 2 straight up 6-1 against divisional opponents over the last 7. So you like look, division games are always played tough, and Tennessee is one of these up and down teams that we can't really figure out. I do think this is a closer game, especially with Mariota playing. So I like the Titans here as well.
We have 90 seconds left, gentlemen. Over under is set at 42.5. Where are you going on this one, Reed?
Under. This is going to be a run first game, so under.
Okay, you could have said more than that, but go ahead, Julian.
These teams stink. It's going under. It's a divisional game. They don't play well in prime time. Under.
They stink. Won't play well in prime time. Okay, got it. Under. All
don't
right.
play well in prime time.
Great.
But therefore,
that's what we said. That's what she said.
That's what she said. Guys, we appreciate the time as always. We appreciate your knowledge as always.
Wow.
So
Reed's letting his hair grow out.
Yeah, he is.
Good stuff, Reed.
Okay, our big show. It's going to return tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to have a special guest joining the sweat.
Yes, I believe it's Nick Eatman DallasCowboys.com. So we're going to look ahead to Thursday's matchup with the Saints. Get excited. We will see you then. Message input.
No, don't read that part.
Okay, all right.
We'll see you tomorrow at 6.